Why do stories captivate us so deeply? It turns out, the answer is wired into our brains. Did you know that when we listen to a story, not only do our emotional centers light up, but our entire brain works to turn those words into our own ideas and experiences? It's true, stories can light up the brain like a city at night. In this video series, Why Storytelling Wins, we're diving into 6 psychological tricks that make storytelling a powerhouse tool in effective communication. We'll explore how stories can sync our brains with others, evoke deep emotional responses, and even compel us to take action. From the gripping effect of suspense to the persuasive power of a well-told tale, you'll learn why a good story does more than entertain, it transforms. Stay tuned as we unlock the secrets behind crafting messages that aren't just heard but are remembered and acted upon. Ready to change the way you speak and influence? Let's get started. Chapter 1: Unlock the Mind, How Stories Rewire Our Brains. Have you ever wondered why a good story stays with you long after it's told? The secret lies deep within our brains. When we hear a story, our brain doesn't just process the words, it experiences the events. According to Uri Hassan from Princeton, storytelling can lead to a phenomenon known as neural coupling. This means the speaker and the listener's brains can exhibit similar activity patterns, almost as if experiencing the events together. This syncing doesn't just happen by chance. It's triggered by the vivid and sensory-rich descriptions common in stories. For instance, when someone tells us about how crisp and aromatic a freshly baked cookie was, parts of our brain light up as if we're smelling and tasting it ourselves. This is not just fascinating, it's a powerful tool for speakers. By engaging the senses, you make your audience part of the story, enhancing their understanding and retention. Moreover, stories stimulate the production of dopamine, the chemical of brain reward. Dopamine helps in information processing and retention. Paul Zak, a leading researcher in this field, found that character-driven stories consistently cause oxytocin synthesis, which is associated with empathy and cooperation. This means if you're telling a story in your presentation, your audience is more likely to empathize with your message and remember it. So next time you're preparing a speech, think of it as an opportunity to connect brain to brain with your audience. Start with a personal anecdote that relates to your main message. Make it rich with sensory details and emotions. You're not just speaking, you're inviting your audience into your experience. Chapter 2: Emotions Echo, the heartbeat of memorable speeches. Why do emotional stories grip us? The answer is more scientific than you might think. When we hear emotionally charged stories, our brains release cortisol, known for its role in forming memories. This is why we can often recall where we were or what we were doing during emotionally significant events, even years later. But how can you use this in your speaking? It's about more than just making people feel sad or happy. It's about crafting a journey that resonates on a deeply personal level. An emotional hook can be your gateway to capturing and maintaining the audience's attention. For example, when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, he didn't just talk about its features. He told a story of innovation and revolution. He tapped into a universal emotion, the excitement of a new era. The key is authenticity. As Maya Angelou famously said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." This doesn't mean every speech has to tug at heartstrings. Instead, aim to deliver your core message in a way that relates to your audience's hopes, fears, or dreams. Use real-life examples that echo these emotions. Incorporating these elements isn't just about making a memorable speech, it's about making a meaningful one. When your audience feels that you understand them, they listen more attentively, engage more deeply, and leave your presentation carrying your message in their hearts. Chapter 3: Mirror Neurons at Play, Seeing Ourselves in Stories. Ever felt a pang of sadness during a tragic movie scene or smiled when the hero triumphed? That's mirror neurons at work. These special brain cells fire not only when you perform an action but also when you observe someone else doing the same. This mirroring process allows us to feel what others are feeling, purely through observation. For speakers, this means your story can literally put your audience in your shoes. To tap into this, focus on relatable experiences. When you share a story of overcoming a challenge or making a tough decision, your audience isn't just listening, their brains are mirroring those actions. They're not just understanding your words, they're experiencing your emotions. Consider using vivid, action-oriented language to activate these neurons. For example, instead of saying, "I was nervous," describe how your hands shook and your voice trembled. This kind of description helps your audience feel the nervousness themselves. It's about showing, not telling. This strategy makes your message more personal and impactful. And it's not just about empathy. Studies suggest that when mirror neurons are activated, they can help in learning and imitation. This means your audience is more likely to remember and emulate your actions or decisions if they can see themselves in your story. So next time you speak, think about how you can make your stories more vivid and action-packed to engage these powerful neurons. Chapter 4: The Suspense Lever, Keeping Audiences on the Edge. Suspense isn't just for thrillers and mysteries. It's a powerful tool in any speaker's arsenal. By building suspense, you create a need in your audience's mind to find out what happens next. This anticipation releases dopamine in the brain, which not only feels great but also improves focus and retention. How do you create suspense in a speech? Start with a hook, a provocative question or a startling statement that begs for resolution. Something like, 3 years ago, I faced a decision that could have ended my career. Today, I'm going to tell you about the single most important lesson I learned from that experience. Suddenly, everyone wants to know what happened 3 years ago and what the lesson was. Keep building suspense by pacing your story. Reveal just enough information to keep the narrative moving forward but hold back enough to keep them guessing. Use pauses effectively. A well-timed pause can heighten anticipation, giving your audience a moment to hang on your next words. Remember, the goal of suspense is to keep your audience engaged from start to finish. This doesn't mean your entire speech should be a cliffhanger. But strategically placing elements of suspense throughout your talk can make your message more compelling and memorable. Chapter 5: Characters that Resonate, Crafting Relatable Heroes. Creating characters in your stories that resonate with your audience can turn a good speech into a great one. The reason? People see themselves in the characters you describe, making your message more personal and powerful. But how do you create such characters? First, your characters must be relatable. They should face challenges and experiences familiar to your audience. This doesn't mean they have to be ordinary, but their struggles and triumphs should echo real-world scenarios. For instance, instead of a superhero saving the world, you might talk about a colleague who navigated a difficult workplace dilemma. This approach makes the story accessible and the character's journey something your audience can root for. Another strategy is to give your characters flaws. Perfect characters are hard to relate to and can feel unauthentic. By showing that even your hero makes mistakes or faces doubts, you allow your audience to see a bit of themselves in the character. This vulnerability makes the eventual triumph even more impactful. Finally, use simple language to describe your characters and their actions. Complex descriptions can alienate your audience. Keep it straightforward: he was tired but determined, or she felt nervous yet excited. These clear, direct sentiments help the audience connect with the characters on an emotional level. Chapter 6: Call to Action, Inspiring Change Through Stories. The final chapter of any great speech should inspire action. This is where all the emotional and psychological engagement you've built through your story comes into play. Your call to action, CTA, isn't just about telling your audience what you think they should do, it's about encouraging them to take the next step based on the journey you've shared. To craft an effective CTA, link it directly to the stories you've told. For example, if your speech is about innovation, end with a call for your audience to embrace change in their daily lives. Make it specific and achievable. This week, identify one routine task at your job and find a new way to approach it. It's also crucial to make your CTA emotionally resonant. Remember, people are moved to action by feelings more than facts. Tie your action step to the emotions of your story. If your narrative was about overcoming fear, your CTA might be about confronting personal challenges. Think of something you've been avoiding because of fear, and take the first step towards addressing it today. By concluding with a powerful, actionable message that aligns with the emotional journey of your story, you ensure that your speech leaves a lasting impact. This isn't just about inspiring your audience, it's about empowering them to make a real change.